So for this morning's service, I have to warn you, it's going to be a little bit different. I'm drawing on a very different kind of sacred text. It's a series of fantasy novels by Sir Terry Pratchett. Because really, what is a holy book? When I was growing up, I knew lots of people who read the Bible, dare I say religiously, every morning, because it made them feel better. It gave them some grasp of the world and some ideas of how to live in it. So the books that do that for me, many of them are by Terry Pratchett. They're about a disc-shaped world carried on the backs of 4 elephants who stand on the back of a giant turtle swimming through space, the turtle A-Tuin. When it feels like the world has lost its mind and I can't bear any more news, and traditional religious aphorisms sound vapid and pointless, I seek refuge in the Discworld. They're funny and engaging and wise in ways that send me looking for my notebooks to write down quotes. So our opening passage this morning for our call to community is from a book called Reaper Man, in which Death, who is an anthropomorphic personification, he's a skeleton with like blue glowing galaxies visible in the eye holes. Death is very interesting. He sounds like, oh no, I'm blanking on the guy's name. He's got a very deep voice, and in the books, all of his texts are written in all caps. So Death decides to go to Earth, and he lives as a man named Bill Dorr, and he wears overalls, and he harvests the wheat. And so near the end of Reaper Man, Death makes a special appeal to Azrael, who is like the overall angel of death and controls time. And Death says to Azrael, "There is no hope but us. There is no mercy but us. There is no justice. There is just us. All things that are ours, but we must care, for if we do not care, we do not exist. If we do not exist, there is nothing but blind oblivion, and even oblivion must end someday. Lord, will you grant me just a little time for the proper balance of things, to return what was given, for the sake of prisoners and the flight of birds. Lord, what can the harvest hope for if not the care of the reaper man?" So our opening thought this morning comes from a conversation between the character of Death and his human granddaughter, Susan. Yes, that's how it's fantasy, because an anthropomorphic personification can have a human granddaughter who works as a nanny. So she says to her grandfather, "You're saying humans need fantasies to make life bearable?" Death responds, "Really? As if it was some kind of pink pill? No. Humans need fantasy to be human, to be the place where the falling angel meets the rising ape. Tooth fairies? Hogfathers? Yes. As practice, you have to start out learning to believe the little lies. So we can believe the big ones? Yes. Justice, mercy, duty, that sort of thing. They're not the same at all. You think so? Then take the universe and grind it down to the finest powder and sieve it through the finest sieve and show me one atom of justice, one molecule of mercy. And yet, you act as if there is some ideal order in the world, as if there is some rightness in the universe by which it may be judged. Yes, but people have got to believe that, or what's the point? My point exactly. So as our first reading this morning, I want to tell you a little bit more about who Terry Pratchett was. He wrote a lot about gods and faith in his books, but he himself was firmly humanist, and so this is a profile that the organization Humanist Heritage UK wrote about him. Terry Pratchett was a beloved author and a prominent humanist, renowned for his satirical and humorous fantasy novels, particularly the Discworld series. In later life, he became an eloquent advocate for the right to die with dignity, turning his characteristic wit and compassion toward the campaign for assisted dying. A patron of Humanists UK and an active champion of many of its campaigns, he was awarded the Humanist of the Year award in 2013. Terry Pratchett was born on 28 April 1948 in Beaconsfield, Buckinghamshire. His passion for writing and storytelling developed early, and he left school at 17 to begin a career in journalism. Pratchett's breakthrough came with The Color of Magic in 1983, the first novel in the Discworld series, which humorously explored a flat, disc-shaped world supported by 4 elephants standing on the back of a giant turtle. Over the course of his career, Pratchett wrote over 40 Discworld novels, each offering a unique blend of fantasy, satire, and insightful commentary on the human condition. They also offered insight into Pratchett's personal philosophy. As Andrew Copson wrote, his humanism showed itself in his work in many ways. When asked for an example of this, he cited his story, The Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents, in which the mice invent morality before they invent religion. That summed up Terry's view on morality and religion. Morality came first. It was a natural development of society. He did not see ethics as coming from outside human beings, but instead from the bonds we shared and as a product of human beings living cooperatively together and trying to promote happiness. In Small Gods, 1992, Pratchett satirized religion. Deities compete for human beings' belief, without which they are nothing. Religion becomes centered around institutions, and power corrupts. Historic conflicts between religion and science are flipped for philosophical and comedic effect. Everyone knows the Discworld is flat and the sun orbits around it, but Omnian doctrine insists that the world is round and orbits the sun. And so the apostates in Small Gods are the ones who claim the turtle moves, and they're attacked for believing the turtle moves. So that's where the title of the sermon came from. On evolution, Pratchett said, "I would much rather be a rising ape than a fallen angel." On belief in miracles, humans, what impressed them? Weeping statues and wine made out of water, as if the turning of sunlight into wine by means of vines and grapes and thyme and enzymes wasn't 1,000 times more impressive and happened all the time. On human responsibility, and you've heard this already, there is no hope but us. There is no mercy but us. There is no justice. There is just us. All things that are ours, but we must care. For if we do not care, we do not exist. And on the importance of human connection, And what would humans be without love? Rare, said Death. Beyond his literary contributions, Terry Pratchett was known for his public advocacy. He was a prominent humanist voice, emphasizing reason, science, and compassion as the basis of his worldview, and supporting a number of Humanist UK's campaigns. One of the most significant aspects of Pratchett's later life was his advocacy for assisted dying. Diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease in 2007, he became a vocal supporter of the right to die with dignity. Pratchett documented his journey with Alzheimer's in the BBC documentary Terry Pratchett, Choosing to Die, 2011, which explored the complexities of assisted dying. He argued for legislation allowing individuals the choice to end their lives when faced with terminal illness and diminishing quality of life. He argued, if I knew that I could die, I would live. My life, my death, my choice. Terry Pratchett died on 12 March 2015, leaving a remarkable literary legacy and a model of profound humanism. As Pratchett himself wrote, "No one is finally dead until the ripples they cause in the world die away, until the clock he wound up winds down, until the wine she made has finished its ferment, until the crop they planted is harvested. The span of someone's life, they say, is only the core of their actual existence." We're going to join now for our time of practices with words, stillness, and music. And you know, there is another way besides prayer or meditation to get in touch with our most essential inner selves: laughter. So this morning, rather than offer a traditional meditation, I thought I would offer you some Pratchett koans. So I'm just going to share a few of these with you. You can mull them over. We will have our time of silence afterwards. Here are a few tidbits of wisdom from Terry Pratchett. Build a man a fire and he'll be warm for a day. Set a man on fire and he'll be warm for the rest of his life. They say a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, but it's not one half so bad as a lot of ignorance. What a place! What a situation! What kind of man would put a known criminal in charge of a major branch of government, apart from, say, the average voter?
Amen.
Human beings make life so interesting. Do you know that in a universe full of wonders, they have managed to invent boredom? Light thinks it travels faster than anything, but it is wrong. No matter how fast light travels, it finds the darkness has always got there first and is waiting for it. Our second reading is from a book called Carpe Jugulum, about vampires. One thing to know about Pratchett is he often has fun with sort of made-up fake Latin. So Carpe Jugulum, of course, would be seize the jugular, seize the blood. This is a conversation between Granny Weatherwax, who is a witch, and Mightily Oates, who is an Omnian missionary. He's a little out of his depth with Granny, I will warn you. Granny said, "Mercy's a fine thing, but judgin' comes first. Otherwise, you don't know what you're being merciful about. Anyways, I always heard you Omnians were keen on smitin' and crushin'. Those were different days. We use crushing arguments now. And long-pointed debates, I suppose. Well, there are two sides to every question. And what do you do when one of them's wrong? Well, I meant that we are enjoined to see things from the other person's point of view, said Oates patiently. You mean from the point of view of the torturer, torture is all right? There is a very interesting debate raging at the moment about the nature of sin, for example. Now, what do they think? Against it, are they? It's not as simple as that. It's not a black and white issue. There are so many shades of gray. Nope. Pardon? There's no grays, only white that got grubby. I'm surprised you don't know that. And sin, young man, is when you treat people as things, including yourself. That's what sin is. It's a lot more complicated than that. Nope, it ain't. When people say things are a lot more complicated than that, it means they're getting worried they won't like the truth. People as things, that's where it starts. Oh, I'm sure there are worse crimes, but they start with thinking of people as things. You know, sometimes when the world has gone mad, you just need something to give you a break from the day's catastrophes and hopefully make you laugh a little. And if it makes you think too, or offers some insight into the human condition, so much the better. Terry Pratchett's Discworld books do all of those things, and that's why I'm sharing his ideas this morning, so that you can have a little relief and a little chuckle too. When I first dove into the books, I thought they were just fantasy science fiction, maybe something like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams, and in some ways they are. And then as I got further into the books, I realized it's really more accurate to think of them as satire that uses the conventions of fantasy as tools. These works are not fluff. Pratchett delivers coherent and very pointed messages about humans and our societies. He wrote many books prompted by then current events or books around themes that have become topical all over again. For example, there's one called Guards, Guards about a cult created by a clerk with political ambitions. But it's also about how easily people can be led to do terrible things by people who tell pretty lies. Night Watch is about an uprising by a ragtag bunch of citizens and coppers against a corrupt and venal government. Oh, so many good messages in that book. Jingo, which takes on, yes, jingoism. In that one, a new island rises up in the ocean between a country called Clatch, which stands in for the Middle East, and the city of Ankh-Morpork, which is basically any Western city. Think London. And people get all patriotic trying to lay claim to this island and starting a war over it. It was written in 1997, so before 9/11, but after the first Desert Storm, and Pratchett takes on a lot of anti-Arab prejudice. There's also a book called Monstrous Regiment, in which a bunch of girls sneak off to dress like men and join the army. And we slowly learn that not only is the entire regiment female, with one lesbian couple, but many of the top brass are women who have passed as men for decades. This in a country where the priests keep declaring that more and more things are abominations unto Nuggin, especially women wearing men's clothes. We'll get to that in a bit. One of my favorites is a book called The Truth, which is about the invention of the printing press and newspapers. Following immediately on the heels of the first newspaper is the first tabloid, publishing gossip and pictures of amusingly shaped vegetables, anatomically amusing. Throughout the 41 books in the series, people are realistically shallow, petty, selfish, and mean. They are also generous and kind and surprisingly good when the chips come down. And as the series goes on, you see Discworld society gradually becoming more accepting. At first, the City Watch is just 3 men, and one of them is a drunk. That's Sam Vimes, and he manages to dry out, stay sober, and get serious about doing the job that's in front of him. And as the books progress, more and more people join the watch. Well, I say people, but by people I mean a dwarf, and a troll, and a golem, and a vampire, and a werewolf, and a gnome named Buggy Swires who rides around on birds. And each of these new recruits faces prejudice, and we get to watch the city and the officers of the watch slowly come around to accept each new addition. Sam Vimes is one of my heroes, and it's not because he's good. It's because he knows he has darkness inside of him. He calls it the beast. And he fights hard to keep it under control, do the right thing, and try to protect his city. You know, fight for trust, truth, justice, and reasonably priced love. Because the Seamstresses Guild objected to free love. Girls got to make a living, you know. So here's a passage from Night Watch, a book about corrupt police and politicians and the uprising that took them down. Sam Vimes is thinking, where exactly was the law right now? What did he think he was doing? The job, of course, the one that's in front of you. He'd always done it, and the law had always been out there, but somewhere close. He'd always been pretty sure where it was, and it definitely had something to do with the badge. The badge was important. Yes, it was shield-shaped for protection. He'd thought about that in the long nights in the darkness. It protected him from the beast, because the beast was waiting in the darkness of his head. He'd killed werewolves with his bare hands. He'd been mad with terror at the time, but the beast had been inside giving him strength. Who knew what evil lurked in the hearts of men? A copper, that's who. After 10 years, you thought you'd seen it all, but the shadows always dished up more. You saw how close men lived to the beast. You found that people like Carcer, a corrupt cop who'd been kidnapping people off the street and having them beaten and killed, they were not mad. They were incredibly sane. They were simply men without a shield. They'd looked at the world and realized that all the rules didn't have to apply to them, not if they didn't want them to. They weren't fooled by all the little stories. They shook hands with the beast. But he, Sam Vimes, had stuck by the badge, except for that time when even that hadn't been enough and he'd stuck by the bottle instead. He felt as if he'd stuck by the bottle now. The world was spinning. Where was the law? There was the barricade. Who was it protecting from what? The city was run by a madman and his shadowy chums. So where was the law? Coppers like to say that people shouldn't take the law into their own hands, and they thought they knew what that meant. But they were thinking about peaceful times and men who went around to sort out a neighbor with a club because his dog had crapped once too often on their doorstep. But at times like these, who did the law belong to? If it shouldn't be in the hands of the people, where the hell should it be? People who knew better? Then you got Winder and his pals, and how good was that? Another frequent theme of the books is religion. One advantage to making up your own world is you can set the stage however you like. And in the Discworld, the gods are real. But these gods didn't create people. Instead, people created the gods by believing in them. And when belief shrivels or faith in a particular god is replaced by fealty to the rules and the pageantry, then the god shrinks and loses his power and eventually disappears. Someone on Reddit posted, "When I first read Small Gods, I was in my new atheist phase, and it felt very meaningful to me in a religion bad, gods are fake, look at this satire of religion kind of way. Then I did some growing, And while I'm still a round-world atheist, the lesson I took away from rereading it is belief creates a kind of reality. And so it matters a lot what you believe. Justice, hope, mercy, all only exist because we believe in them. So it's really important that we believe in them extra hard in times when their existence seems to be threatened. The book Pyramid says this about belief. Dios, first minister and high priest among high priests, wasn't a naturally religious man. It wasn't a desirable quality in a high priest. It affected your judgment, made you unsound. Start believing in things and the whole business becomes a farce. Not that he had anything against belief. People needed to believe in gods, if only because it was so hard to believe in people. The gods were necessary. He just required that they stayed out of the way and let him get on with things. There's a similar dynamic between the witches and gods. In Witches Abroad, Terry writes, most witches don't believe in gods. They know that gods exist, of course. They even deal with them occasionally, but they don't believe in them. They know them too well. It would be like believing in the postman. Here's a conversation among three witches, Granny Weatherwax, Nanny Ogg, a young witch named Agnes, and that Omnian missionary named Mightily Oates that we encountered. I am the quite reverend Mightily Oates. You are? Said Agnes. That is, mightily praiseworthy are ye who exalteth Oates, he said. It's much shorter in Omnian, of course. Have you by any chance heard the word of Om? Which one, fire? Said Nanny Ogg. Granny, this Om, anyone seen him? It is said that 3,000 people witnessed his manifestation at the great temple when he made the covenant with the prophet brother and saved him from death by torture on the iron turtle. And I bet now they're arguing about what they actually saw, huh? Well, indeed, yes, there are many opinions. Right. That's people for you. Now, if I'd seen him really there, really alive, it'd be in me like a fever. If I thought there was some God who really did care two hoots about people, who watched them like a father and cared for them like a mother, well, you wouldn't catch me saying things like there's two sides to every question and we must respect other people's beliefs. You wouldn't find me just being generally nice in the hope it'd turn out all right in the end. Sacrificing your own life for it, one day at a time to the flame, declaring the truth of it, working for it, breathing the soul of it, that's religion. Anything else is just being nice and a way of keeping in touch with the neighbors. Monstrous Regiment, which I mentioned earlier, really takes on some out-of-control religious practices. First, some background from the Discworld wiki, because of course there's a wiki, right? Monstrous Regiment takes its name from the 16th century tract by Protestant John Knox against the Catholic female sovereigns of the day, the full title of which is, and this is real history, the first blast of the trumpet against the monstrous regiment of women. He was, of course, referring to Queen Mary and these British monarchs. The bulk of Monstrous Regiment takes place in the small bellicose country of Boragravia, a highly conservative country whose people live according to the increasingly psychotic decrees of its favored deity, Nuggin. The main feature of his religion is the abominations, a long, often updated list of banned things. So here's the local envoy trying to explain this religion to Sam Vimes. I brought you a copy of the Book of Nuggin. I looked through one back in the city, Chinny, said Vimes. Seemed pretty That wouldn't have been a recent edition, sir, and I suspect it wouldn't be, very current that far from here. This one is more up to date, said Chinny, putting a small but thick book on the desk. Up to date? What do you mean, up to date? Said Vimes, looking puzzled. Holy Writ gets written. Do this, don't do that, no coveting your neighbor's ox. Nuggin doesn't just leave it at that, sir. He, updates things. Mostly the abominations. To be frank, Vimes took the new copy. It was noticeably thicker than the one he'd brought with him. This is a holy book with an appendix? Exactly, sir. In a ring binder? Quite so, sir. Vimes opened a page at random. Chocolate? He said he doesn't like chocolate. Yes, sir, that's an abomination. Garlic? Well, I don't like it much either, so fair enough. Cats? Oh, yes, he really doesn't like cats, sir. Dwarfs? It says here the dwarfish race which worships gold are an abomination unto Nuggin. He must be mad. What happened? Oh, the dwarfs that were here sealed their minds and vanished, your grace. I bet they did. They know trouble when they see it, said Vimes. He leafed through the pages and stopped. The color blue? Correct, sir. What's abominable about the color blue? It's just a color. The sky is blue. Yes, sir. Devout Nugginites try not to look at it these days. Chinny had been trained as a diplomat. Some things he didn't like to say directly. Nuggin, sir, is rather tetchy, he managed. Tetchy? Said Vimes. A tetchy god? What, he complains about the noise their kids make? Objects to loud music after 9 p.m.? We get the Ankh-Morpork Times here, sir, eventually, and I'd say that Nuggin is very much like the kind of people who write to its letter column. You know, sir, the kind who sign their letters disgusted with Ankh-Morpork. Oh, you mean he really is mad, said Vimes. Oh, I never mean anything like that, sir, said Chinny hurriedly. What do the priests do about this? Not a lot, sir. I think they quietly ignore some of the more extreme abominations. You mean Nuggin objects to dwarfs, cats, and the color blue, and there are more insane commandments? Chinny coughed politely. All right, then, growled Vimes, more extreme commandments. Oysters, sir. He doesn't like them. But that's not a problem because no one here has ever seen an oyster. Oh, and babies. He abominated them too. I take it people still make them here. Oh, yes, sir, but they feel guilty about it. Barking dogs, that was another one. Shirts with 6 buttons, too. And cheese. People have to sort of avoid the trickier ones. Even the priests seem to have given up trying to explain them. Yes, I think I can see why. So what we have here is a country that tries to run itself on the commandments of a god who the people feel may be wearing his underpants on his head. Has he abominated underpants? No, sir, but it's probably only a matter of time. So how do they manage? These days, people mostly pray to the Duchess Anagovia. You see icons of her in every house. They call her the Little Mother. Ah, yes, the Duchess. Can I get to see her? Oh, no one sees her, sir. No one except her servants has seen her for more than 30 years. To be honest, sir, she's probably dead. And they pray to her like a god? Chinny sighed. I did put this in my briefing notes, sir. The royal family in Borgravia have always had a quasi-religious status, you see. They're the head of the church, and the peasants, at least, pray to them in the hope they'll put in a good word with Nuggin. They're like living saints, celestial intermediaries. To be honest, that's how these countries work in any case. If you want something done, you have to know the right people. And I suppose it's easier to pray to some picture than to a god you can't see. There's a very telling line near the end of this book, spoken by a woman who had lived in the Borgravian equivalent of the Magdalen laundries in Ireland, if you're familiar with those. Someone remarks that the priest there seemed like a good man, and the woman says, yes, he was good at seeming. On the subject of terrible things done in the name of religion, there is this passage from Guards' Guards. But we were dragons. We were supposed to be cruel, cunning, heartless, and terrible. But this much I can tell you, we never burned and tortured and ripped one another apart and called it morality. As you can see, Pratchett loves to skewer those who would use religion as a cudgel or a means of power. So that's most of the story of Small Gods, which features something called the Quisition. You have inquisitors and exquisitors, and a lead exquisitor named Forbes. Pratchett's genius was realizing that even torturers have office culture. There were no jolly little signs saying, you don't have to be pitilessly sadistic to work here, but it helps. But there were things to suggest to a thinking man that the creator of mankind had a very oblique sense of fun indeed, and to breed in his heart a rage to storm the gates of heaven. The mugs, for example. The inquisitors stopped work twice a day for coffee. Their mugs, which each man had brought from home, were grouped around the kettle on the hearth of the central furnace, which incidentally heated the irons and knives. They had legends on them like, a present from the holy grotto of Ossory, or to the world's greatest daddy. Most of them were chipped, and no two of them were the same. And there were the postcards on the wall. It was traditional that when an inquisitor went on holiday, he'd send back a crudely colored woodcut of the local view with some suitably jolly and risque message on the back. And there was the pinned-up, tearful letter from Inquisitor First Class Ishmael Popquoom, thanking all the lads for collecting no fewer than 78 obols for his retirement pension, and the lovely bunch of flowers for Mrs. Quoom, indicating he'd always remember his days in number 3 pit and was looking forward to coming in and helping out on the days they were short-handed. And it all meant this: that there are hardly any excesses of the most crazed psychopath that cannot easily be duplicated by a normal, kindly family man who just comes in to work every day and has a job to do. So we have a lot of characters and a lot of books and a lot of territory to cover, but at the end of the day, there are really just a few key lessons that crop up over and over again with Sam Vimes and Granny Weatherwax and these other characters. And these are the ones that I take away with me. First, do the job that's in front of you. Accept your duties and don't try to run away from them. Don't treat people as things. Resist the beast that rages inside of you. And don't forget to laugh at the footnotes. Please, who has questions or responses or thoughts? Albert?
Anybody?
Hi. I'm trying to think of a question on the spot. There was just so much. I read one of his books when I was in high school. I remember nothing except that I really enjoyed it. And so this has made me want to go and give them a try again, because I've seen some of his quotes online and they are among the funniest things I've read in my entire life. So I just wanted to say thank you for sharing his words with us today, and your enthusiasm for it is infectious, and it's great to hear. It's not really a question, I'm sorry.
That doesn't have to be a question. It can be feedback.
Basically more of the same. Thank you for bringing Pratchett. Yes, it is different. While we tend to get political messages and environmental messages, Pratchett does it all very well. And you did it very well, so thank you.
Yeah, I had to skip, there's a whole section on economics that I skipped because I'm running long. But ask me later about the Boots theory of socioeconomic unfairness.
If we're looking for the books, are they under science fiction?
Just search for Terry Pratchett.
Okay.
Search for Terry Pratchett or Discworld. They are available, actually, if you have a library card. The Houston Public Library will give a library card to anyone in the state of Texas. You just have to go online and you give them, I think, your Texas driver's license number, and they'll give you a library card, and you can borrow online from the Houston Public Library. A librarian at Plano actually told me that. So I borrow most of mine over Libby, which is the public library app. I have a whole bunch of them in hard copy, but there's 41 of them. I don't really have room. At some point, your bookshelves are full, and your husband starts objecting to the stacks. So the audiobooks are terrific too, and there's an older series and a newer series of audiobooks, and some people are fans of different ones. But if you go to any ebook app or audiobook app, you can find, just search Discworld, and you should be able to, or Pratchett, and you should be able to find them. I wish I could do some of the accents. The readers are terrific. Oh my gosh.
Awesome. Thank you.
But yeah, I think they need to be shelved with Jonathan Swift myself. But
Hi, me again. I thought of an actual question.
okay.
How many books did you say were in the Discworld series?
41, but that is if you include, there's a 5-book series featuring a character named Tiffany Aching that started as young adult books. Tiffany Aching is a witch, like a teenager who is just coming of age, and it starts with her as, I don't know, 15 maybe? 14, 15, and sort of growing up and coming into her own. There's a series of 5 books. And there's one called The Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents. And there's an animated movie of that. I haven't actually watched that one yet. So those 6 books are a little bit different, but they're part of the Discworld universe, so it's sort of like the Marvel universe kind of thing.
Aside from those, are the other ones meant to be read in a particular order?
So if you go online and you search Discworld reading order, you will come up with charts.
Oh boy.
Because you can read them in publication order, but the consensus is that the first 2 books are not the best. They were Terry finding his feet. I enjoyed them. The books get deeper and more substantive as you go.
Mm-hmm.
The first ones are kind of fluffy, bordering on silly, but fun. As they go, he really began taking on more social issues. And so you can read them in publication order. You can read them by groups. So there's a group of books about the City Watch. Mm-hmm. There's a group of books about the witches. There's a group of books they call the Industrial Revolution that is kind of, it starts out being in kind of a, I don't know, medieval style city with no real technology, and they invent this thing called the clacks, which is sort of like a telegraph machine, and then they invent the printing press, and then somebody invents printed money, and so there's some books that go through that. And the last one is called Raising Steam, about the invention of the railroad, and that was actually the last book that Pratchett wrote. And at that point he was dictating the books because he had a special kind of Alzheimer's, and I forgot what it's called, but it specifically affected his visual center, so that he had lost the ability to read and write anything written down. So he was dictating the books and he had somebody helping him. So you can read them by character groups, or you can read them in publication order, or you can just dive in. Small Gods is a terrific one that doesn't require any knowledge of anything else that happened. And a lot of the books are kind of happening at the same time when people try to put together a timeline. A lot of them sort of overlap. So I would say whichever one is available at the library first, feel free to grab it. That's kind of the order I read them in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, well, we're skipping our song, so we're going to go straight to the closing thought. The character of Death says, "It is often said that before you die, your life passes before your eyes. It is, in fact, true. It's called living." With the lessons that Pratchett taught us firmly in mind, it is time now to go forth into the world, to do the job that is in front of us, to resist treating people as things, and when all else fails, to laugh at ourselves and this funny old world.